you all caught it. Alex Sanchez, let me start with you, and we'll go around the panel. First thing, talk about this nut who took the gun and executed 2 people, almost 3, on live internet television. However, was not successful with the third. And secondly, talk about what you heard in the clip about the gun laws and how that lawyer, who is a lawyer, was talking about the guns, and how he feels about the guns and how you feel about the guns.
Well, this case is a very frustrating case. We have a guy that, the guy clearly has serious, psychiatric and mental disorders. And, it's like there's no real explanation of why this was done. I heard an explanation. He said he was the victim of, homophobia, or he was the victim of racism, but the guy's a nut. And, you can go around in circles trying to figure out why he did it and how this came about, and you're never really going to get a satisfactory explanation, because that's what mental illness is all about. Mental illness is something that you cannot explain. It's something that's not rooted in logic. It's illogical. And this is the consequence when a person with serious mental disorders gets a gun or gets any weapon. Now, some people say, well, we should cut down on the use of guns. And I really understand that concept. Except if you cut down on the use of guns and this fellow didn't have access to a gun, he'd have a car. He'd run you over with a car. If you don't have a car, you get a sledgehammer. Sledgehammer you to death. So I don't think gun laws are necessarily going to stop somebody like this, because they will find some alternative way to commit mayhem. But on the other hand, I really have a problem with people who support the right to carry a gun, who really seem to be very resistant to all forms of legitimate investigation concerning the background of the individual that is seeking to get a gun. You want to get a car, for example, you have to get insurance, you have to pass a driver's test, you have to be a certain age, you have to take an eye test. It seems like it's easier to get a gun in some places than it is to go and get a driver's license. And that makes absolutely no sense to me. And that's what is so sickening and so frustrating about this entire issue.
And Bremner, out of Seattle, attorney, what's your take on what this topic is, A, with the guns, and B, with this guy?
Well, I was on the East Coast the day that happened. I was flying from Charleston, South Carolina. I had just been to visit the church where Dylan Roof took 9 souls. And then I was flying to Atlanta for CNN and MSNBC. So it was all breaking, as I was traveling. And we went live on Nancy Grace. My MSNBC had canceled. And I was sitting in a studio in Atlanta just watching all of that breaking news with somebody who said that they'd had a shooting at their studio there some years back. And it's like, oh, my gosh. It's like I thought maybe they went to the scene of a shooting and they got shot in crossfire, never thinking that some disgruntled ex-employee of the station would come and shoot people on live television, because of imagined flights. And also, it's been described in many ways as kind of the modern day, ultimate modern day shooting, that he's put it on social media, they did it on live television, he's the ultimate narcissist, all of those kinds of observations. I was a prosecutor for a long time. I've defended police officers for decades. I have, admittedly, I'm very anti-gun. I'm very pro-gun control. And for reasons like this, like Alex said, with mental illness, you can't screen for mental illness. That's all protected by HIPAA. So how do you know, who's too unstable to have a gun? When you look at countries that aren't allowing guns at all, they don't have the horrific murders that we have. Like, it's almost like we have these spree-type killings du jour. I mean, everything from Dylan Roof to James Holmes to Jared Loughner to Adam Lanza. They just happen over and over and over again. And I keep thinking, what shooting will make people wake up and say it's got to stop? It's just got to stop. Maybe this one, maybe not, but my sentiments are really with more ceasefire type of organizations because of just the horrific violence we see in this country. And I was very upset when the Supreme Court said the right to bear arms was a personal one, because I think the way that it was worded was initially more in terms of a militia. But again, I have to say I have a very strong bias against guns.
Very good point indeed. Joseph Scott, your take.
I'm so very numb at this point in my life, having been in forensics essentially all of my adult life. I've been standing over the dead since I was 20 years old, and it made me, some of the comments and things that have been said, it made me reflective back to the summer of 1999 when in Atlanta we had what was referred to as the Buckhead shooting, or the day trader shooting, where we had Mark Barton that came into a day trading center, and at the end he had killed 16 people. It was something that has always stuck with me. Prior to that, the week before, little known to many people, is we had another shooting that happened in a very poor area of town. It's called the Adamsville shooting, where we had a family of 8 that were killed, and so we had these things bookended back to back. And sometimes, as a practitioner, you numb yourself to it because you have to drive on through this kind of tidal force of blood, and I know that's very theatrical, but that's really what it comes down to. I have very vivid memories of being at home with that family and almost breaking my neck because I was sliding on their blood. Children, just dead, laying mangled in the hallway. And then you walk into an office building where you have a lady that is seated at a desk in a business suit. She slipped her shoes off like many women do. Many people can identify with that, and she's in a business suit, and it's perfect hole right in the center of her back, and she's laying there in the glow of the screen of the computer. I wish that many people, for just a moment, could see the things that I have seen, and would become more aware of this kind of threat of violence. The guy that was on the air just a moment ago, he talked about these things that are unseen, but yet they happen every day. Mm-hmm. You're right, it did strike a chord with people in the media, so they would ramp this up. I'm sure that there were multiple homicides around the country that particular day, but those two people struck a chord with the media, and ergo they have, they've kind of peeked through this thing and brought attention to it. It's a very challenging time that we live in.
No question, indeed, and it is a definite tragedy. That girl and that guy both had everything to live for, no matter with the gun issue or without it. So tragic, that story. And these last few weeks with all these murderers, as Ann Bremner brought up the Dylan Roof one just a couple weeks back, just it keeps going on and on and on and on. And the gun laws, in terms of how to get a gun, as Alex pointed out earlier, needs to be changed a little bit, in my opinion.